Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am your host, Hatman. We're going to talk about some boxing today. Let's get straight into it. Let's not stand on ceremony here. Get right into the topics at hand. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I will come on to your questions and what have you. Obviously, super chats get priority, but I will try to answer as many questions and comments as possible. First of all, some of the undercard for the Alexander Usyk Tyson Fury rematch has been revealed. You can see it on screen here. The website BoxRec are still not recognizing the WBA because that title is on the line for this rematch. It just shows the IBO, WBC, and WBO. So, BoxRec really need to sort that situation out. And it's a situation, as far as I can tell, in terms of them not recognizing the WBA, of their own doing. So if you are a boxing record site, how on earth could you not have any records of one of the major sanctioning bodies, one of the oldest sanctioning bodies, if not the oldest? I think the WBA might be older than the WBC. Maybe one of you historians out there can confirm or deny that. But anyway, the undercard, as it is so far for Usyk Fury 2, has been revealed. And as you can see here, they've got Sergey Boachuk versus Israel Madrimov. That's a good fight. And the rest of it at the moment is pretty underwhelming. I mean, we're talking about UK card, copper box, standard fare is basically what we're dealing with right now. You've got Isaac Lowe versus Lee McGregor. I mean, I thought Isaac Lowe had retired. I know he's Tyson Fury's little bum chum and all that, but yeah, I thought he'd retired. Apparently he's fighting a guy called Lee McGregor. Then you've got Dennis McKean versus Peter McGrail. I guess that's a good domestic UK fight. You got Moses Itauma taking on Dempsey McKean. Now that's interesting because Dempsey McKean's last fight, for those of you who maybe don't know, was the Filip Hrgović fight. He was stopped in the 12th round against Hrgović, and he did have some success in that fight. So it'll be interesting to see how Moses Itauma fares against this guy. It's a big step up for him. Although, as I say, McKean is coming off a long layoff. Right? It's been a long time since that Filip Hrgović fight. I think it was last year. And then you got Johnny Fisher versus Dave Allen. I mean, that's not exactly box office stuff, is it? Johnny Fisher versus Dave Allen. Dave Allen, last time I saw him fight was against Fraser Clark. Didn't he quit against Fraser Clark? I swear he quit against Fraser Clark. So, yeah, Johnny Fisher versus Dave Allen. It's a shoulder shrugger. Is it a step up for Johnny Fisher? Yes, from the likes of Alan Babbage, definitely. Dave Allen can definitely take a better shot than Alan Babbage. So I'd say it's a step up in that sense in terms of durability. But Dave Allen's always been a guy who struggles to let his hands go. Will he struggle to let his hands go against Johnny Fisher? We shall see. So it doesn't look like the greatest undercard at the moment. And I think it's fair to say that the Saudis appear to be tightening their purse strings a little bit when it comes to some of these cards. They're not spending the kind of money on these particular cards that they were spending on some cards, just a few months ago. So they're tightening their purse strings a little bit, it would appear. However, there are rumors that Martin Bakole could be on this undercard. It says here, headline, this is from Boxing Scene, Martin Bakole likely to feature on undercard of rematch between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. Who will it be against? Well, there had been some talk of Martin Bakole versus Zhilei Zhang, Martin Bakole or Zhilei Zhang versus Parker, potentially Bakole versus Parker, but now it's looking like it could be Martin Bakole versus Ajit Kabayel, because that fight has now been ordered by the IBF. Okay, if we have a look at the heavyweight rankings here, you look at the IBF rankings, they haven't yet been updated after AJ lost to Dubois, as far as I'm aware. So forget about AJ being at number 3. the IBF have ordered number 4 and number 5, who might be number 1 and number 2 now, Kabayel against Bakole. That's been ordered. That's a really good fight. That's an interesting fight. You've got Kabayel, who has been a dark horse during Riyadh season. You know, he's come through and beat the likes of Arslanbek Makhmudov, who was a massive guy, big puncher, took his soul. He's lost since, Makhmudov has. And he also beat Frank Sanchez, a very talented, fast, athletic Cuban. Although I do have to say that Sanchez appeared to be injured in that fight. Appeared to have some type of knee or leg injury. Nevertheless, Kabayel is coming off good wins. He's been taking people's unbeaten records, going up against Martin Bakole. Could it be the Michael Hunter fight all over again for Martin Bakole? Is Kabayel that guy? Or will Martin Bakole be too much for him? We will see. And hopefully that fight does happen. Hopefully it does land on the undercard of Usyk Fury 2. Because that's a really interesting one. And it's needed as far as I'm concerned on that undercard. It would bolster the undercard significantly because right now it's looking a little thin. Let's be real. It's still a couple months out. They can still do a lot to it to improve it. But it's definitely not impressing the boxing public as things stand right now. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think about the undercard as it is. And how essential do you think it is that they have, let's say, a Martin Bakole versus Kabayel on that card as well. So as you can see here, headline Martin Bakole versus Kabayel in play for December, which would put it on that card, right? IBF Eliminator. And here we've got a quote from Ben Shalom. He was being interviewed by Sky Sports. He said, "I think the only way we get it, as in a world title fight for Martin Bakole, is by forcing it to happen." And I agree with that. Goes on to say, "I don't think anyone that's got a world title would want to risk it against Martin Bakole. He's number 1 with the WBA and in the top 5 with every sanctioning body. Soon there'll be nowhere to hide." Goes on to say here, "It's a fight we've been talking about for some time. For me, the 2 most avoided heavyweights in the world." Now he's talking about Bakole versus Kabayel. "The IBF are notorious for enforcing their mandatories, so the best one for us to be involved in. We really fancy that fight. We're hoping to get it done for this year in December. We'll see what happens." Yeah, they need to get that fight as far as I'm concerned on this undercard. Now, going back to one of the other fights I mentioned on the undercard, Madrimov versus Boachuk. It's a good fight. It's not like a must-watch fight or anything like that, but it's a good fight. Both guys are coming off losses. But they're coming off losses which many people will contest. Many people will contend that both guys won those fights, that Boachuk deserved to get the victory over Virgil Ortiz. And some people think that Madrimov deserved to get the victory over Terence Crawford. Full disclosure, I actually scored that fight in favor of Madrimov. I'm not saying it was a robbery or anything like that, but I did have Madrimov, I think, a round or 2 up by the end of the 12. So, yeah, 2 guys coming off losses, but they put in very credible, respectable performances. So, yeah, these guys going up against each other, I think, is a very interesting style matchup. You've got Boachuk, who is a pressure fighter, very tough guy. You know, he's big. He comes in, throwing his hooks and uppercuts on the inside. Then you've got Madrimov, who's a more classical stylist. He's got that old Eastern Bloc style, although, you know, I know Uzbekistan is in Central Asia. He's got that old Eastern Bloc Soviet style, constantly on the bounce. Very difficult to read his punches when he throws the right hand. And yeah, he's a very, very good fighter, as we saw there in the Terence Crawford fight. So will Madrimov be able to stave off the constant pressure of Boachuk? Personally, I suspect he will, but, you know, we'll see what happens. That's a good fight. Look forward to it. Also on the undercard, we've got Moses Itauma, as I mentioned earlier on, taking on Dempsey McKean. Itauma is 10-0. McKean is 22-1. Itauma 19 years of age. Dempsey McKean 34 years of age. You can see the heights listed there as well. Itauma 6'2.5", Dempsey McKean 6'6". If Itauma was to go in there and blast out Dempsey McKean, that's a statement, folks. Oh, yes, it is. This is a guy in Dempsey McKean who went nearly 12 rounds, nearly the full distance. The fight ended in the last round against Filip Hrgović. If Itauma goes in there and blitzes this guy in, let's say, the first half of the fight, that's a massive statement. I mean, even to beat this guy and to do it at least as convincingly as Filip Hrgović did is a statement in itself. It shows the level that he might already be at. So it's a big step up for Moses Itauma. The curious thing, though, is that Dempsey McKean isn't ranked in the top 15 of any of the sanctioning bodies, presumably due to inactivity. Again, he hasn't fought since that loss he suffered to Filip Hrgović. In fact, let me try to get the information on my screen so I can have a look at it here. Yeah, the Hrgović fight was, when was it? In August last year, August 2023. So we're talking about over a year out the ring for Dempsey McKean. So indeed, they're going to drop you out the rankings in most instances, unless you're like a former champion cash cow, then they tend to bend the rules for you. But for most fighters, if you've been out the ring for that long, they're going to drop you out of the top 15. And so that's the case with McKean. But the reason I raised that, the reason I mentioned that, is because Itauma, it would seem, is still trying to break Mike Tyson's record and become the youngest heavyweight champion in history. Now, in order to put himself in a position where he may be able to do that, he's going to need to, you know, maybe beat somebody in the top 15. But then again, maybe not, because he's already ranked highly, right? He's ranked, as you can see, with the WBO, they've got him at number 6. They've got him ranked with, I'm looking at the IBF now. He's not yet ranked with the IBF. See, that's the thing, because Frank Warren obviously has got Daniel Dubois, a world champion. And if he wanted to make a world title fight for Moses Itauma to try and break that record, you would think that Dubois would be the guy he would go for, but he's not ranked with the IBF. And since Dempsey McKean isn't ranked with the IBF as well, would a victory over McKean really give Itauma a top 15 ranking with them? We shall see. You know, these sanctioning bodies, as we all know, tend to make things up as they go along. Then you got the WBA. I'm looking for Itauma in there. Yeah, he's not ranked with the WBA, nor is he ranked at the moment with the WBC. So it appears that he's only ranked with the WBO. Now, we know the WBO have had a very close relationship with Itauma's promoter, Frank Warren, for many, many years, since the very start, since their inception, actually. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Moses Itauma taking on Dempsey McKean. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section below. All right, I want to draw your attention to this right here. This was a video that was uploaded on Sky Sports Boxing a few days ago. Fraser Clark meeting Lennox Lewis. They had a very interesting chat. They did they did a little bit of pads. They had a conversation about boxing technique and talked a little bit about Fraser Clark's upcoming rematch with Fabio Wardley. It was very, very interesting. Lennox Lewis gave a really good insight into the mindset of a top-level elite heavyweight. And also, he pointed out some of the subtleties that he implemented and he had in his game when he was fighting back in the 90s and very early 2000s. And at the top level in boxing, it's all about tiny margins. The littlest thing can make the biggest difference. I know it sounds cliche, but it's actually true. So I recommend this video if you haven't seen it. It's a really interesting conversation between Fraser Clark and Lennox Lewis. Fraser Clark is literally like the student there, listening to everything Lennox is telling him. I mean, one of the first things Lennox talks about is how to deal with the pressure, how to deal with criticism and so on. And he rightly pointed out that he was criticized non-stop. You know, I said this in recent videos because Anthony Joshua apparently doesn't believe he's got the credit that he deserves. Well, he hasn't been criticized as much as Lennox Lewis was criticized during his career. Okay, so you can't worry too much about not getting the credit you deserve, so on and so forth. Lewis was criticized non-stop, pretty much, you know, month in, month out in all the major boxing publications. It was very American-centric back then. There was only really Boxing News and Boxing Monthly in the UK. The Americans had multiple publications, and they were pretty much trashing Lennox Lewis in damn near every edition. That's how it was for years and years and years. So, yeah, Lewis talked about how you have to believe in yourself and you basically have to be egotistical, arrogant. When all of these people are saying you're rubbish and you got no chin and you're a horizontal heavyweight and you got no left hook and all the things they used to say about Lennox Lewis, how do you not allow that stuff to get to you? Your ego has to be bigger than the criticism. Yeah. Now, a lot of fans, they like to talk about humble fighters. Oh, I like this guy. He's so humble. He's so down to earth, this, that, and the other. Let me tell you something. At the top level, nobody's humble. They might try to come across as humble because it's good PR. They understand that a lot of fans like it. But deep down inside, they have a massive ego, at least as it relates to their boxing ability. They have to. You have to have intense, incredible self-belief beyond that of a normal human in order to make it at a top level in boxing. So Lewis talks about that. He talks about, he shows Frazer Clarke certain techniques, how to throw the jab in a particular way, how to disguise your punches, to have a bit of motion and movement in your body before you throw your shots, because it helps to disguise them. If you are completely still like a statue and you're looking to lead off, then any little tell, any little bit of motion in your body before you throw the punch will be easily picked up by your opponent. But if your body's constantly moving, you're moving your shoulders, you're moving your, hands up and down here and there, not like massively, but if there's a little bit of movement, a bit of a bounce in your step, then it becomes more difficult for your opponent to recognize or see the tells, because there's lots of moving parts then. And that's one of the secrets with Alexander Usyk, because he's constantly moving. He's perpetual motion. Particularly a couple years ago, like in the first AJ fight, he was perpetual motion, non-stop head movement, non-stop foot movement, moving his hands, changing levels. And when all this is going on, you're trying to concentrate on what he's doing offensively and defensively. Yeah, there's a lot to concentrate on. And that's when he comes out with punches that you don't expect and he catches you. That's one of the secrets to Usyk. So yeah, Lennox Lewis was just showing Frazer Clarke certain tricks and techniques and what have you. And I thought it was a very interesting video. So I highly recommend it. It's on Sky Sports Boxing YouTube channel. All right, let's have a quick look at the chat. See who we got in here. Shout out to Iron Fist. Shout out to Peter. Shout out to John. We got Ocean Blue in the chat as well. Shout out to him. Shout out to Phil. I would just call him Warts. Shout out to Warts. First Round Boxing. Shout out to Andre. He says Beterbiev by KO. We're going to come on to that in a moment. Shout out to Leo O'Brien. The Iron Inspector. All right, we got many other people in here. Fizz, Byron Newton, The Final Boss. We got Deep Random Thinker. Shout out to you, sir. Philip Answer says they got Johnny Fisher and Moses Itauma on the same card and didn't think to have them fight each other, but I guess Fisher is not keen on that fight. Yeah, that fight is never going to happen anytime soon. I mean, just look at who Itauma's fighting compared to who Johnny Fisher's fighting, and that tells you all you need to know. Johnny Fisher is fighting Dave Allen. Moses Itauma is fighting Dempsey McKean, a guy who just went nearly 12 rounds with Filip Hrgovic. So it's chalk and cheese in terms of their opponents. A shout out to Charles B, Patreon crew in the house. All right, somebody says, looks like Usyk is in training camp based on his Instagram. Yeah, I can believe it. Ayed says, Matias has asked for Matchroom to release him, apparently. Okay, I'm not surprised by that. You got Cal in the chat. Big up, Cal. Yeah, I'm going to come on to Janibek Alim Kanuli versus Hamza Shiraz in a moment. That's something I'm going to cover here. All right, Afro Jam in the chat. Big up. Shout out to Oscar for the super chat. Thank you, sir. Yeah, the open workout is on. So, Oscar with the super chat says Usyk fights are like violent guessing games. Indeed, they are like violent guessing games. Indeed, they are. Stephen Whitemore says, do you think Itauma will be the dominant heavyweight in the next era? It's very possible. He's got a tremendous amount of potential. So, we shall see. I'm just hoping he can break Mike Tyson's record. Nothing against Mike Tyson. I just want to see records broken. Like Usain Bolt has got the 100-meter record, right? Don't you want to see that broken? I do. And just like I want to see that broken, I want to see Mike Tyson's record broken. So, yeah. All right, back to the agenda here. So, Fraser Clark, Lennox Lewis video. I highly recommend that. Then Beterbiev versus Bivol. All right, let's talk about this fight. People are really split. I've been going back and forth on it for a while because... initially I was going Beterbiev, but then Beterbiev pulled out with the apparent injury. Some people don't think it's an injury. I don't know. And then you've got the age of Beterbiev to take into consideration as well. If the injury's legit, if it's a real injury and it was a major injury by the sounds of it, you combine that with his age, that makes me lean more towards Bivol, But this is the reason that this is such a great fight, so highly anticipated, because we really don't know. It's a 50-50 on paper. There are so many variables, yes, but you really could make a case, you could argue the point for either guy winning. So at the moment, am I slightly leaning towards Bivol? I'm back and forth. I'm pretty much on the fence about this fight because I can see a way for both of them to win. One of the things though, is that Eddie Hearn was talking about how Dimitri Bivol's got great footwork and he's not going to get trapped on the ropes. Well, when he fought Canelo Alvarez, he was actually on the ropes quite a bit. You guys go back and watch that fight. Dimitri Bivol allowed himself to get backed up to the ropes and he allowed Canelo to actually tee off on him a little bit when he was against the ropes. So... is it really going to be that difficult for Beterbiev to maneuver him into the same position? I mean, maybe you could argue that Dimitri Bivol didn't really fear Canelo's power, or I don't know whether fear is the right word, but let's just use the word fear. He didn't fear Canelo's power the way he might fear Beterbiev's power and strength. But for me, it's like Canelo's 5'8" at best, and he was able to push Dimitri Bivol back, pin him on the ropes and tee off. Yeah, Bivol was able to block the shots and what have you, but with Artur Beterbiev, he can punch through your guard. He only needs a few seconds to be able to do some serious damage. So see, now I'm thinking about it. I want to go back and lean more towards Beterbiev again It's a fascinating fight. What do you guys think in the chat? Beterbiev versus Bivol. How do you guys see this fight going? All right, Charles B says, I think Beterbiev will stop him. Racim says, leaning towards Beterbiev late stoppage. Phil Answer's got Beterbiev late stoppage. Jay Woods has got Beterbiev late stoppage. Issa says it's an insult they have Beterbiev ranked number 2 and Bivol 1. Who's got them ranked like that? Ring Magazine? BoxRec. Yeah, I wouldn't pay any attention to BoxRec rankings anyway, in general, because they're computerized rankings and they're often bizarre. So I wouldn't pay any attention to Box. It's not an actual human being that does the rankings on BoxRec. It's like computer algorithms, and it's never been a very good ranking system on BoxRec, so I wouldn't pay any attention to it. Shout out to Bradley for the super chat. Joshua says, Bivol wins a comfortable points decision. Okay. Shout out to Bradley again for the super chat. Oh, sorry. I was reading the wrong thing there. No, Bradley says Beterbiev by eventual destruction. Okay, he's another one for Beterbiev. It was Joshua below him who said that Bivol wins comfortable points decision. So in the chat, it's looking like most people are favoring Beterbiev. Okay. And, you know, power has more of an impact on not only fighters, but the fans as well. When they see a guy who's got great punching power and he's a destroyer, and they see a guy who is a mover like Dmitry Bivol, people tend to go with the destroyer. And it's not that Beterbiev is only a destroyer. He's got skills too. He's got a great jab and he's got a good boxing brain. Underrated boxing skills. It's just that Dmitry Bivol is so much faster. He's got great footwork. He's a great combination puncher. And he's going to need to keep Artur Beterbiev busy. So Ali says, I think Bivol's quicker hands and feet will be the difference in this fight. All right, we will see. We shall see. Issa says Alexander Vozdek was a pretty good mover. Indeed he was. And he was doing well in that fight, but Beterbiev caught up with him in the end. And that's what tends to happen. Devin Sinclair says, a shout out to Devin. Bivol on points. All right, so we got some Bivol people coming in here. Iron Fist says, I disagree, Hatman. I have the impression people tend to side with the mover. Fans love movement and speed too much, underestimating well-placed power. Like Tony Bellew. Power punches. All right, Rob says, I say Bivol's work rate will be too much for Artur in the beginning. However, Artur will remain dangerous. Bivol must just avoid being pushed to the ropes. This one won't be one-sided. Well, hopefully it won't be. Hopefully we see a really competitive fight. Maybe a classic. That's what I'm hoping for. Diff says, one thing a fight with Beterbiev will never be is comfortable. Indeed, he doesn't allow you to get comfortable. Wave says Beterbiev will stop Bivol, Hatman. I've never been this confident in a big fight. Okay, Wave has got Beterbiev all day long. Well, you're more confident than me because I keep flip-flopping between the two. I'm not sure who to pick. Again, originally I was saying Beterbiev, but then the injury and the age made me start questioning my pick. And I was like, oh, maybe Bivol's going to do it, you know, beat him on points. So I'm back and forth on this fight, really on the fence. Fight Sport Talk says Bivol doesn't get into clinches. His movement is too perfect. So do you think he's going to win? Fight Sport Talk also says Beterbiev got to Vozdek because they got into clinches and Beterbiev was able to muscle him around. Okay, so you're saying that because Bivol doesn't really get into clinches, he should be able to just outbox Beterbiev over the distance. But as I say, if you go back and look at the Canelo Bivol fight, you'll see that Canelo was able to maneuver Dimitri Bivol towards the ropes or onto the ropes, pin him on the ropes quite early in the fight. Now, was Bivol doing that? Was he allowing that to happen because he wanted Canelo to expend himself because he maybe didn't respect the power? I don't know. But if he does that against Beterbiev, I think it will prove fatal. You can't allow Beterbiev to back you up to the ropes like that, like he did Canelo, and get shots off. You just can't. A big up G-Man in the chat. Yes, yes. Charlene says it's a 50-50. Can't decide. Longest surname wins is how I'll decide. All right, well, that's Beterbiev, right? He's got the longest surname. Ocean Blue says, Hatman, would you recommend Da Vinci Resolve to a beginner? You know what? I don't really know. It depends how intuitive you are, because the first time looking at Da Vinci Resolve can be overwhelming. But once you learn the basics, which shouldn't take that long, then it's quite easy and quite intuitive, I think. I mean, to me, Da Vinci Resolve was more intuitive than what's the I forget the name of it now. Final Cut. Yeah, Final Cut Pro. I find Da Vinci Resolve more intuitive than Final Cut Pro, and Da Vinci Resolve is free. So, or there's a free version. There is a paid version that comes with more features, but yeah, I mean, it's quite amazing that Da Vinci Resolve is, you know, such a powerful professional software is actually available for free. I don't know how long that's going to be the case, but yeah, Da Vinci Resolve is my go-to video editing software. All right, Afro Soul says Bivol 8-4 in the cards. So he's going for Bivol by a pretty comfortable decision. All right, let's move on to something else on the agenda here. Somebody mentioned it earlier on, and that is Janabek Aleem Kanuli versus Hamza Shiraz has been ordered by the WBO. Obviously, Aleem Kanuli is the WBO champion. He's a unified champion. That fight has been ordered, as you can see here. It says the sanctioning body has ordered Kazakhstan's Aleem Kanuli to face the next unbeaten contender Hamza Shiraz. The ruling was made on Tuesday, with both sides given until October 23rd to reach a deal. Now, believe it or not, Aleem Kanuli needs this fight more than Hamza Shiraz does. Yeah, even though Hamza Shiraz is the contender, he doesn't have any belts. Aleem Kanuli just fought against an Australian, was it, or a New Zealander? I think it was an Australian in Australia who I'd never heard of before. Okay, so think about Aleem Kanuli's position as a champion commercially, that he has to go all the way out to Australia and fight a pretty obscure opponent in their backyard. You see, Aleem Kanuli, as good a fighter as he is, and he's a good fighter, he's got some nice skills. Commercially, he is nowhere at the moment. And so that's why he really needs the Shiraz fight more than Shiraz needs the Aleem Kanuli fight. I would have suspected that Shiraz and his people would target, let's say, Erislandy Lara before they target Aleem Kanuli, or target the other champion. I forget the other champion's name, the guy who took over from Charlo, because Charlo was so inactive, I think they eventually stripped him. What's the guy's name? Maybe one of you guys can remind me in the chat. Shout out to Bradley for the super chat again. He said, Beterbiev's a killer hat, man. He definitely is. Thank you, G-Man and Wave. They said Adames, yes. Carlos Adames. So I would have assumed that Hamza Shiraz's people, and that's obviously Frank Warren, Queensbury, they would have tried to get him in there against a Carlos Adames or Erislandy Lara first before putting him in there against an Aleem Kanuli. I would have thought they tried to get hold of a belt and then unify with Aleem Kanuli. But we'll see. At the end of the day, he's got a straight shot there at a title. So we'll see what happens. Nick says, why is Shiraz so hyped? I don't really see what the buzz is about. Personally, I do see what the buzz is about. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he's been looking very good lately. I think that he has, really developed his skills over the past few years. So I don't see why. I mean, when you talk about hype, I don't think anyone's saying that Hamza Shiraz is going to be the next superstar in boxing and, undisputed in multiple weight classes. I don't think anyone is saying that. But in terms of the middleweight contenders coming through, I don't see anyone who has looked more impressive than Hamza Shiraz. And obviously middleweight is a pretty weak division at the moment. Nevertheless, I want to say Shiraz has caught my eye more than any of the other rising middleweights out there. So I like the look of him. I like the way he fights. He's all business. He goes in there trying to knock people out, and he is knocking people out. So personally, I like watching Hamza Shiraz. Afro Soul says, by the way, Fisher has revealed today that Shiraz was offered the Canelo fight earlier this year, but they turned it down. They think it's a bit early, and I think they're right. G-Man says, hi man, any updates on the Don Charles video? On the Don video? Don video. I presume you're meaning Don Charles? In what sense? Updates about Don. Ocean Blue says, did you see a collie vacated the Bridgerweight Championship? Yep, that's what we're about to get onto next. We got it all on the agenda here. So, the very next item here. And by the way, if Hamza Shiraz did go ahead and fight Aleem Kanuli, it's a really interesting fight. I would favor Aleem Kanuli. I know Aleem Kanuli had some issues with Denzel Bentley a while back. Denzel Bentley is a more compact fighter. He can tuck up and make himself very difficult to get to grips with. Well, he at least proved that he could in the Aleem Kanuli fight. Kanuli wasn't really getting through with the kind of clean shots that we often see him get through with. So, yeah, Bentley, I don't think is as good a fighter as Shiraz, but he's a different fighter. Styles make fights. So personally, if Shiraz were to fight Aleem Kanuli next, I'll be picking Aleem Kanuli to win that fight. Probably on points. Could he stop Shiraz? Yeah, it's possible. I don't think Shiraz has the greatest defense in the world, although that's developing. So I'd be picking Aleem Kanuli. But if you're talking about Shiraz versus Carlos Adames, Shiraz versus Erislandy Lara, I'll give a much better chance to Hamza Shiraz in those fights. And again, he's still learning. He's still improving. So there may come a point either when Aleem Kanuli moves up or Hamza Shiraz improves enough to where I might give him a shot, like a serious shot, at beating him. So yeah. All right, next thing here. Lawrence Okoli vacates the WBC Bridgerweight world title, will now campaign at heavyweight. So here we have a statement from Mauricio Suleiman, or a quote from it, who is the president of the WBC. He said, the WBC has received official confirmation from Lawrence Okoli that he has decided to relinquish his Bridgerweight championship in order to pursue his dream of becoming heavyweight champion. Consequently, interim champion Kevin Lerena is hereby confirmed as WBC Bridgerweight champion. All right, so that's what's going on there. Lawrence Okoli put this statement out. He said, after much consideration, it is with a heavy heart that I have to unfortunately relinquish the WBC Bridgerweight title while respectfully requesting to be rated in the top 5 in the heavyweight division. Let's see whether the WBC grant that request. But if we have a look at the rankings again here, so you can see the WBC rankings, you got Tyson Fury at number 1. And I really don't understand why Tyson Fury is ranked so high in these sanctioning bodies. I mean, look at him. He's ranked above Zhang with the WBO. He's ranked above Kabayel with the WBA and Zhang with the WBA. And he's ranked above Kabayel, Bakole, Zhang, so on and so forth with the WBC. And this is something they did with Deontay Wilder as well. After he got beat, after he'd been extremely inactive and he was coming off back-to-back losses against Fury, and only that victory over Robert Helenius, they saw fit to rank Deontay Wilder extremely highly. When Anthony Joshua lost to Usyk, they dropped him down significantly. I don't think he was top 3 in any of the sanctioning bodies. But when AJ came back and he had a couple fights, I think after the Helenius fight, they started ranking AJ really highly again. But with Tyson Fury, I mean, he's coming off a loss to Alexander Usyk, and prior to that, a poor performance against Francis Ngannou, a guy making his pro debut in boxing. And some people think that Ngannou actually won the fight. Not me, but there are many other people out there who will contend that Ngannou deserved to win the fight. So how on earth can Fury be ranked this high? I really don't like it when the sanctioning bodies show this much favor to ex-champions just because of their commercial status. I don't think commercial status should have anything to do with where a sanctioning body ranks you. I think it should be purely down to what you've done lately in boxing. Shout out to Matt for the super chat. He says, Okoli's getting knocked into orbit at heavyweight. Well, we will see. Anyway, let's have a look at these rankings here. So WBC top 5 is where Okoli wants to be ranked. You got Tyson Fury, you got Ajit Kabayel, you got Martin Bakole, Zheli Zhang, and Efe Ajagba. Who would pick Lawrence Okoli against any of those guys? Because I wouldn't. The one who I'll give him the best chance against would be Ajagba. But the others, I wouldn't pick Okoli against any of them. But, you know, it's not for Lawrence Okoli, who's only lost one fight and he's coming off a good win. It's not for him to be listening to naysayers like us and putting, you know, the limitations that we put on him. He has to believe in himself. So maybe he can prove us all wrong, go in there in the top 5, fight an eliminator against, I don't know, Ajagba, beat him. We shall see. And, you know, Lawrence Okoli is a guy who is involved in business. I think he's got some restaurant out in Dubai, and that's where he's based these days. So surely he wants more money. And in the heavyweight division, you can take a risk. I mean, the Kevin Lerena fight would have been somewhat of a risk. Not that Lerena is an amazing fighter, but he did drop Daniel Dubois multiple times. So you can go fight a guy like him, and Lorena's been elevated to WBC Bridgerweight champion now. You can go fight a guy like him for peanuts, or you can move up to heavyweight, get a fight in the top 5 against one of the top 5 guys, and make what, double, triple, quadruple what you would have made against Kevin Lerena. So yeah, that's what Lawrence Okoli has decided to do, and I can't blame him. Yeah, there's no money in the Bridgerweight division, and he's trying to make a living. So I can't knock what he's trying to do there. And I'm sure it's not just about money for him. I'm sure he does have some belief that with Joe Gallagher, he can, you know, maybe do something at heavyweight. We'll see. All right, what haven't we talked about here? See if there's anything else on the agenda. Oh yeah, one last bit of news here. So David Benavidez and David Morrell looks like it's actually set to happen. This is according to ESPN, and several other online websites have reported this. They say that the fight isn't yet signed, at least not to my knowledge right now, but it's very close to being signed. Both of these guys are PBC fighters, obviously, and PBC need to be putting on good bouts. You know, they're not doing a lot of shows these days on Amazon. So they're going to need to match a lot of their guys tough and not protect them to the level that they used to. Because, you know, PBC were terrible when it came to protecting fighters and what have you. When I say terrible, I mean they used to protect fighters to an extreme extent. Whereas here, throwing two of their guys in against each other, this fight is probably overdue, to be honest. But yeah, David Benavidez versus David Morrell, light heavyweight bout. Benavidez announced Tuesday on Instagram. Let me know what you guys think about this potential fight. Who would you pick, Benavidez or Morrell? You know, a lot of people were not impressed by either of their last two performances. Benavidez against Vozdek, and David Morrell, I forget the name of the guy he just fought. It was a guy who Beterbiev, he was the guy that Beterbiev fought a while ago, right? I forget his name. Is he Serbian? What's the name of the guy that David Morrell just fought? Somebody remind me. Yeah, Hot Rod. That's the nickname he has, Hot Rod. What's his actual name? That's his nickname. Thank you. Yes. Kalajic. Yeah, Kalajic. So Morrell didn't look that great against Kalajic. And many people say that Benavidez didn't look that great against Vozdek. So they're kind of in a similar boat. Now's a natural time to make that fight. And if they can do it for a vacant belt, because that's the question. Will they wait for, well, the fight's this weekend, so yes, they're going to wait for it. But will they try to get a belt stripped off the winner of the Artur Beterbiev-Dmitry Bivol fight and then have Benavidez and Morrell fight for the vacant belt? Is that what they're looking to do? All right, so somebody says here, I don't know why people rate Bakole so high after beating Hype Job Anderson. Well, I don't really see boxing in those black and white terms. I think there's a lot more nuance than that. I don't think it's as straightforward as saying Anderson's a hype job, and you know, I don't see it like that. Boxing is shades of gray. Anderson was an inexperienced but talented young fighter, throws a lot of punches, very athletic, he's got power. But he came up against a guy in Bakole who was not only too seasoned and experienced and mature for him, but also powerful and active enough to take advantage of Anderson's less than stellar chin. So yeah, I think it's a bit more nuanced than just to say this guy's a hype job, this guy's the real deal, you know. Afro Jam says Kalajic claimed that Beterbiev is not the hardest puncher. He throws rabbit punches in combinations which catch you off guard. Yeah, I've seen him throw some rabbit punches here and there, but I've also seen him throw a lot of legit punches. And when it comes to his power, well, some fighters have said that he hits harder than anyone they've been in the ring with before, and other fighters say not. So I think it depends on the fight, really. A fighter isn't necessarily going to punch as hard or hit their opponent as hard in every fight. It depends on, you know, how much they want to load up. It depends on how much the opponent is moving, how much the opponent makes it easy for them to land their hardest shot. So, and yes, thank you for a couple guys here reminding me about the like situation. We're not even at 100 likes. Let's get it up to 150, at least 150, and then we'll continue. So I'm going to take a little pause here. Let's get the likes up to 150. There's 275 concurrent viewers. Let's get 150 likes, then we'll continue. So shout out to those in the chat calling for more likes. Yes, let's get the likes up. Let's get to 150 and we'll continue this. Come on, people, just 42 more likes now. We're on 108, 113. Let's get it up to 150. $273 or 277, excuse me, concurrent viewers. We need to get at least 150 likes. Let's go. 117. Got a guy with an interesting name in the chat here. Hatman's evil twin. All right, nearly 120 likes. We need 31 more. Let's get it up to 150. We can continue. Cost you nothing, folks. Helps out the channel. Helps these streams get seen. So drop a like on the video. It'll be much appreciated. We're on 124. And speaking of reveals, there was a few people who asked to see some footage of me hitting the bag from back in the days. And there was somebody who said the video was only like 2 seconds long or 5 seconds long. No, it's about 2 minutes long of me hitting the bag. And I uploaded that video to my Patreon page less than a week ago. 2-minute video of me hitting the bag. That's on my Patreon page right now. In fact, I got a screenshot, which I'll show you guys in a second. Nearly at 150 likes. We're on 136. Let's get these likes up, folks. Help me out over here. The last live stream I did got something like 500 or more likes, maybe 600 likes. So yeah. Let's get the likes up to at least 150, and then we'll proceed with more boxing talk. We're on 141, nearly there. Nearly there. Nearly at the 150. Smash that like button. 144. And I will get back to your comments. Shout out to Bradley for the super chat. Once again, thank you, sir. Let's get 8 likes, people. 8 more likes. Let's get this stream seen. 5 more. We got 247 concurrent viewers. We just need 3 likes, and I'll continue. There we go. Shout out to everybody in the chat who liked the video. So, Spark says, Bakole versus Itauma, who wins? I would go with Itauma right now, truth be told. Shout out to I think waffles are great. Jose says, what's your take on Edwards versus Yafai? I have to be honest, I don't care. I don't care about Edwards versus Yafai. Really don't care. Just being real, just being honest. A shout out to Pound for Pound every time. He says, Bakole has come out and stated that Big Bang Zhang declined the fight with him. Wow. Okay, if that's true, that's a bit of a head scratcher. Maybe it's because Frank Warren wants Big Bang Zhang to fight Joseph Parker instead, the rematch. Maybe that's why. But then I saw an interview with Joseph Parker not too long ago, and he was saying that the Zhang fight, the Zhang rematch, is likely not to happen next. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but it wouldn't surprise me if Frank Warren is behind Zhang Bakole not happening, or Zhang turning down the Bakole fight, if he indeed did. Because that's an in-house fight for Frank Warren. Zhang versus Joseph Parker too. And if Zhang were to fight Bakole and lose, that's Ben Shalom with a foot in the door then, isn't it? Because right now, Zhang's got a bigger profile than Martin Bakole. So maybe Frank Warren don't want to give Ben Shalom the opportunity to really have a seat at the table, like a seat at the big table. Muhammad said, Wilder never landed 100% clean on Fury, Parker, and Zhang. Well, I think he landed 100% clean on Fury quite a few times, but on Zhang and Parker, I agree. He never really landed properly on those guys. CJ says, Mike Tyson fought 27 times in his first 2 years as a pro. Are you disappointed with Moses Itauma's activity? Personally, I was kind of hoping he would be 15 or 16 fights in at the end of the year. Yes, I am disappointed, but it's not really surprising because the landscape is different today. It's more difficult to get fighters out that many times. In order for Itauma to fight anywhere near as much as he wanted to, like Mike Tyson, he'd have to be basically a free agent. He'd have to be signed with a small promoter who has a good relationship with the bigger promoters and could get him on multiple different shows, because no one promoter really, certainly not Frank Warren, had enough shows to get Itauma out as often as he would want to. So yeah, it is what it is. It is a bit disappointing, but he might still be able to do it. And that's the reason why I've basically said that if Itauma were to win a version of the heavyweight title and let's say beat Mike Tyson's record, I think he should vacate the belt immediately afterwards and then continue his learning process before finally, stepping back up to world level. I think if he can break Mike Tyson's record, do it for history's sake, and then drop back down. Now, of course, the Mike Tyson fanboys were upset with me saying that. They're saying, well, if he isn't going to stay at world level, he doesn't deserve to break Mike Tyson's record. And I'm like, hang on, Mike Tyson had nearly 30 fights before he fought for the heavyweight title. Itauma would have loved to have had that many fights, but it's not possible for him. So Mike Tyson was in a position where he was able to, gain the type of experience that Itauma has not been able to gain through no fault of his own. And since that is the case, then, I would advocate for Itauma, if he can break Tyson's record, relinquishing the belt immediately and continuing the learning process. That's what I would say. Shout out to Adrian in the chat. Big up Adrian every time. He says, who you got in the Benavidez-Morrell fight? I'll probably lean towards Benavidez based on their most recent performances. Troller Bata, weird name. He says, is Opataya overrated? Well, most well-known fighters are overrated by someone. But in general, is Opataya overrated? My opinion, no. Iron Fist says, do you still get the vibes that Fury will drop out of the Usyk rematch? It seems to me that he intends to go on. I haven't seen him too rattled in recent interviews. He might be deluded, but it helps. Well, I've never said that I had the vibes that Fury was going to drop out of the rematch. I've never said that. I said that it wouldn't surprise me because this is Tyson Fury. We know his history. Yeah, we know the guy has pulled out of many fights in the past. We know that he is a pathological liar. So it wouldn't surprise me if Fury pulled out, but at no stage did I ever say that I think it's going to happen or I think it's likely he'll pull out. No, I never said that. Other people have said it. Drew McKenzie said he thinks it's likely Fury will pull out, and, you know, other people, but I'm always on guard with Tyson Fury. That's the main thing. I don't put anything past him because of his, past behavior. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if Tyson Fury pulled out. Let's just put it that way. Obviously, I've pointed out that to me, he looks a little heavy at the moment, but that isn't necessarily because he intends to pull out. It could be because he thinks he needs to be more heavy in the rematch. We'll see. Issa says, I would love to see Benavidez versus Bouts. I think it will be great. Yeah, it's a good fight. Deep Random Thinker says, why isn't Bakole, Kabayel, Zhang Parker all on the Usyk Fury undercard? Terrible undercard. Yeah, well, we started the show kind of talking about that, and it does look thin as things stand right now. And you definitely want at least Bakole, Kabayel on there. If not, Zhang Parker. Although, you know, Zhang Parker is not a fight I particularly like, truth be told. I don't think that fight really needs a rematch. The first fight was so boring. You know, other than the 2 knockdowns, it was uneventful. So, Matt says, my only worry with Itauma is his size. I'm not particularly worried about his size. I mean, he's what? Bigger than Usyk? He's roughly the same height, maybe a shade shorter than Usyk, but in terms of body weight, he's actually bigger. And Usyk has come through and taken all the big guys out. So I don't personally see an issue with Itauma's size. You know, if you're good enough, you're big enough. And he has a coordination advantage and a speed advantage on most of the bigger heavyweights out there. So yeah, those are the talking points today. I think we've been through most of the stuff. Just double check here. So there was the Usyk Fury undercard. We've talked about that. Bakole potentially being on that undercard against Ajit Kabayel in an IBF final eliminator. Madrimov versus Boachuk is an interesting fight. Itauma versus McKean. Showed the heavyweight rankings there. Fraser Clark, Lennox Lewis. If you haven't seen this video, I highly recommend it. It's very interesting. Beterbiev, Bivol, the big fight this weekend. We're all looking forward to it. I want to say, I'm going to do a poll actually on my, in the community section on my YouTube page. And judging by the comments that I've got so far on this live stream, most people seem to be siding towards Beterbiev, but it's quite close. I want to say maybe, in fact, let me set the poll up right now. Let me do it on the fly right here. Give me a second, people. Back in 1 second. Okay, so the poll is now up on my channel. Beterbiev Bivol. Let's see what my subscribers say over the next couple of days. And yes, I do intend to do a live stream during the fight and during, most of the card. So definitely tune in if you want to hear my commentary blow by blow. So yeah, one thing I forgot to put up here. Let's try to get it up for you guys. I know some people want to see this. I did mention a video that had been requested by several people for whatever reason of me on the heavy bag from back in the days. Let me get it up here. Not the video, the screenshot. Excuse me, the screenshot. The video is on my Patreon page. I uploaded it there the other day. But where is it here? Yeah, the screenshot. This is me on the heavy bag, throwing a very good right hand. Let's throw it in there. There you go. That's me hitting the heavy bag. Some of you guys who were members of my old Facebook group will remember this video. About 2 minutes long. I was living in a very hot country, very, very hot country, and I had some weight to lose when I moved over there. So this was basically a video of me showing my training, obviously, hitting the bag outside in sweltering heat. I mean, I was hitting the bag here in over 40 degrees heat with crazy humidity. And if you ever tried to do that, my gosh, it's nothing like hitting the bag when you're in a nice, normal, 20 degrees Celsius gym. Hitting the bag outside in that kind of heat is difficult, trust me. But yeah, anyway, that's a screenshot of me from that video. The video is like 10 years old, actually, because some people were asking on the in the Patreon how old the video was. It's about 10 years old. Yeah. I want to believe I could still punch the way I do in this video now, because most people, when they watch the video, they're quite impressed. They're like, wow, you're fast and powerful and all this. And now in my mid-40s, I would like to believe I can still, my ego likes to tell me I can still punch like this and have this type of speed, but I might be delusional. Guzi says, do you have your hat on now? I actually don't. Yeah, but they don't call me Hat Man for no reason, right? That's why they call you Hat Man. 40-degree heat, got a hat on, of course. Got to sweat it out, man. I mean, a sauna suit would have been insane. A sauna suit probably would have put me in hospital wearing it out there. Nick says, do you wear a hat in bed? If so, what type of hat? Not these days. But I have, when I was still in the UK, I would wear, during cold winters, a hat in bed. Yeah, just a little beanie hat. When you're bald, it's the move to make, You don't have a thick head of hair to keep your head warm. Got to put a hat on. Indeed, Nick. Tea cozy on the cold winter nights. 100%. Ocean Blue says my hair's too frizzy for a hat. All right, 1 second, people. Just gonna go to the restroom. All right, we got an interesting question here from Foxy Bingo. He says, how do you think Riddick Bowe would do in today's heavyweight division? Well, Riddick Bowe is a little bit of an enigma, because this might sound strange considering the fights he was in. It's hard to gauge how good he really was. I say that because aside from the Holyfield fights, remember he lost one of those fights, the second one. Aside from the Holyfield fights, Riddick Bowe never really had any major wins. You know, I mean, officially he beat Andrew Golota twice, but that was by disqualification, and he got battered in both of those fights. Right? And so apart from Holyfield, who did he beat? What? Jorge Luis Gonzalez, a completely undisciplined Cuban who went on to be knocked out by Tim Witherspoon and a bunch of other people. He beat Herbie Hyde, who'd already been beaten himself. And in fact, was that Hyde's first loss, or had Hyde already been beaten? I forget now. But either way, you know, Hyde lost to plenty of people. Lost to Riddick Bowe, lost to a Congolese journeyman, Joseph Chingangu. Lost to a bunch of people. So, yeah, Riddick Bowe, how good was he really? Who did he really beat? Larry Donald? I mean, these are fringe contenders. And many people think that Tony Tubbs actually deserved the win over Riddick Bowe when they fought. And that was an ancient Tony Tubbs. He was also hurt by Tyrell Biggs, who was way over the hill in their fight. Go watch Riddick Bowe versus Tyrell Biggs. You'll see Tyrell Biggs hit Riddick Bowe. I think it might be with a left hook right hand. And Bowe's hurt. His legs wobble. He backs up towards the ropes against an ancient Tyrell Biggs, who was never a puncher to begin with. You know, one of the reasons that there was a lot of skepticism about Riddick Bowe when he turned pro wasn't just because, according to the American boxing media, he kind of not quit against Lennox Lewis in the Olympics, but didn't show the kind of fighting spirit that they wanted him to show. It was also the fact that early on in Bowe's pro career, and even in the last stages of his amateur career, he used to spar Tyrell Biggs often. And Tyrell Biggs, according to the reports I've read over the years, used to beat the stuffing out of Riddick Bowe in the gym. I mean, you just used to batter him for fun. Okay. Obviously, Tyrell Biggs was a very good amateur. You know, he beat Lennox Lewis in the amateurs. He beat many good fighters. Tyrell Biggs was a gold medalist, of course, but he had a serious problem with, you know, the old crack pipe. And that's really what helped to curtail his career as a serious contender. He obviously never became a champion, but he was a contender for a while. And that really ended when he challenged Mike Tyson for the heavyweight title, because he had the substance abuse issues even then. That's why his team, the Duvers, put him in against Tyson so early on in his career. I think he was only about 14 or 15-0, and Mike Tyson had over 30 fights, and Tyrell Biggs wasn't looking impressive in the run-up to that Mike Tyson fight. He just went life and death with a guy called David Bay in his previous bout. Nearly lost that fight on a bad cut. So, yeah, anyway, Riddick Bowe, how good was Riddick Bowe really? It's hard to say. He had a certain level of ability. He was a big guy, 6'5". He had a great jab. In fact, when we talk about great heavyweight jabs, Riddick Bowe, in my opinion, should be in the conversation because he had a tremendous left jab. I mean, it was wicked shot. It was fast. He was accurate with it. He could double and triple it up. It was powerful. You know, he had great rhythm on the jab. So Riddick Bowe had a tremendous left jab. He would go head and body upstairs, downstairs. And one thing about Riddick Bowe, he was very smooth with his work. If you ever watch Riddick Bowe fight, he's very, very fluid. Yeah, good combination puncher, like to mix it up on the inside. And the two issues for me with Riddick Bowe are his defense and his chin. Because defensively, he was never very good. Yeah, defensively, there was an issue there. And in terms of his chin, I'm not saying he had a bad chin, but, you know, he was dropped heavily by Evander Holyfield in their third fight, nearly knocked out. Again, he was hurt by Tyrell Biggs. He was battered and dropped by Andrew Galotta in 2 fights. Never actually down in the first fight from headshots, obviously the low blows. But in the second fight, he was down from headshots too, not just low blows. So, yeah, Riddick Bowe in today's heavyweight division, I think he'd be a very interesting addition. You know, he was a very kind of aggressive fighter in the ring. You never saw Riddick Bowe go in there and try to win a fight safe. You know, try to box safe and steal a decision. He never fought like that. He always went in there to try to take your head off, which is why he was entertaining to watch. So, I don't know. I don't think he would be, to cut a long story short, I don't think he would be the man in the division. Definitely not. But he'd be there or thereabouts. He'd be one of the more major contenders, I would say. Charles B says, have you done any fishing lately, Hatman? I haven't. The weather's been terrible for fishing right now. You know, it's rainy season, so gotta wait for dry season before you start thinking about fishing out here. Afro Jam said Bowe had short arms for 6'5", but was a great jabber. I don't think he really had short arms. I think he had kind of maybe normal length arms for his height. I want to say Bowe's reach was at least 80 inches, maybe 81. So I don't think he had short arms for his height. But so, for example, Vitaly Klitschko, 6'7", he had a 78-inch reach. So at 6'7", he had the same reach as David Haye, who's 6'3". I think maybe the same reach as Usyk as well. At 6'7". Whereas Riddick Bowe, let me get up his box rec here and I'll double check. I'm pretty sure he must have had at least an 80-inch reach. '81. So I was pretty close. Yeah, 81-inch reach for Riddick Bowe. So that's pretty much, you know, average kind of reach for a guy of that height. It's not particularly short. Bear in mind, Daniel Dubois is 6'5", and I think his reach is 78. So, nah, he didn't have a particularly short reach, but great jab, tremendous jab, powerful. And he had that great rhythm that he would fight off. He was a very, you know, pleasing fighter to watch, Riddick Bowe. For those of you who have never really looked at a lot of his fights. He was entertaining, and he had a aesthetically pleasing boxing style. That's what I'll say about him. But yeah, his defense was not great. And his chin, we can question it. Right, somebody just put in the chat there that Klitschko's reach, as in Vitali, was 80. And yeah, it says that on BoxRec now. But I swear, years ago, when Vitali was still fighting, they listed it as 78. But either way, 80-inch reach for Vitali Klitschko at 6'7". Riddick Bowe, shorter, has got a slightly longer reach than Vitali. I think Vladimir's got a longer reach than Vitali. I think it might be 82 for Vladimir. Let me check that. Dr. Steelhammer. No, 81. Okay. So they're all there or thereabouts. And Vladimir listed as 6'6". All right, peeps, I'm going to turn this stream in here. Shout out to everybody who joined me on this live stream. Talked about a bunch of stuff. I'm going to try to chop up this stream into smaller videos and upload them separately for people who want to, you know, obviously haven't caught this stream, but want to hear me talk about specific fights and specific bits of boxing news. So look out for that. Until next time, shout out to everybody in the chat again for joining me. Special shout out for everybody who donated via Super Chat. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm out.